The 49ers and Cowboys are set to kick off a little less than 48 hours from now. We're going to get into some of your questions about the game. We'll take some calls if you want to call in. We'll really break down this game and get all into it next on the Jack Hammer Show. Hey, everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Hope you're all doing well on this Friday as we get ready for the NFC Championship weekend. A good slate of games. There's going to be 4 good games coming up over the weekend. It'll be capped off on Sunday at 3:30 by the 49ers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Should be a great weekend. Looking forward to this game on Sunday, that's for sure. Want to shout out a few folks over in the comment section. We have Steve O. Supremo. We got Lucas Pesci, member of the Toolbox in the house. He says, hi, Jack. Hey, Lucas, good to have you on board. And then we have Raphael 5629ers who says, good afternoon, Jack, members of the Toolbox and everyone. Good to have you on board, Raphael. Really appreciate you. And then Raphael always reminds me to make sure that everybody likes and subscribes. If you guys can do that, that'd be fantastic. So what we'll do is I have asked earlier this week for a mailbag questions. And so there were some questions that came in. Some about this game, some about the last one, but I think they all kind of tie into what we're going to be seeing on Sunday when the Flyers take on the Cowboys. So we'll get into those. We'll take your calls as they come through, and we'll see how long we go. Plan on this for being about an hour. We'll stick around till about 5 o'clock and let you guys all get out to enjoy your the start of your weekend as we get ready for this big football weekend coming up. First question I want to answer was this is one I've seen a lot of this week, and it's from Frank Gruzman at FGoose78 on Twitter. He says Bosa had recorded 0 quarterback pressures against Seattle. He also had no sacks in that game. Did Seattle figure out a way to limit Bosa, and can we expect the Bucs or Cowboys to use that same formula? Well, we know it's going to be the Cowboys. Remember, this question came in prior to the game on Monday night. When I went back and I rewatched this game, I didn't see anything specific that Seattle did. They didn't try to come out and double team Bosa. They weren't trying to chip him or things like that. The way that the Seahawks limited Bosa was they just came out and they said, we are going to run the football. We are going to stay balanced. And when we throw the ball, we're going to get the ball out quick, or we're going to bootleg. We're going to do it off of play action. Those things all take the pass rush out of the game. The longer an offense can run the ball, the less opportunities you're going to have to pressure the quarterback. That's a no-brainer. But also, on top of that, if you are running a lot of play action, where it's quick boots out to the either direction, or you're just running short routes in which the quarterback's able to hit his back foot and get it out of his hand, that's going to eliminate the number of pressures and hits and those kind of things that you're going to get as a defensive line. You need to really have situations where that quarterback is going to hold the ball. And that's one of the things that I would say kind of worries me moving forward about this game against the Cowboys. As you look at this, and the Cowboys run the ball really well. So you look at what Seattle did last week in terms of their running game. You get that as well from the Seattle team. On top of that, from the Dallas team. On top of that, you have a quarterback that's really good on play action. We saw that on Monday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's kind of been a theme throughout the year as well. If you allow Dak Prescott to let the running game go and then just work off of play action and be able to take those short underneath throws and things like that, you're going to have some trouble stopping them. And then again, on top of that, you have a guy who can move around, and Dak Prescott, as the season's gone along, has gotten more comfortable with using his legs. I do see that being an issue or a potential issue for the 49ers on Sunday. So when we look at this game from a defensive standpoint, this is going to be the 49ers' toughest matchup for sure against any NFC opponent, maybe all season, right there with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs, what they were able to do on offense, the 49ers had a hard time stopping them. You look back at that game, and there's a couple of plays that were basically jet sweeps. The way that the Chiefs run jet sweep, same as the 49ers. It goes down as a pass, but it's really just a forward handoff on a run. The guy, it just a little toss forward. You're not even throwing the ball or anything, but it counts as a pass. And the Chiefs had a lot of success against the 49ers, getting to the edge. And that's what we saw with Seattle on Saturday as well, was that ability to get on the edge, get a guy on, hats on hats, 49ers defenders not being able to get off of blocks. And you're seeing big runs occur as a result. So we'll see how that plays out on Sunday. But that would be one of my key concerns going into this. I want to hit one more, and then I'm going to get to the caller. We have a Korean 49er on the line. I'll get to him right after this one. Sean B., the Sean Man 23 says, why do you think the Cowboys are a tougher matchup than the clearly way better Chiefs? You said this will be the toughest match of the year. Bro, duh, not even close. I think you're right. I think there is something to be said about the Chiefs matchup. The Chiefs are I think the Chiefs from a offensive standpoint are probably better than Dallas. I don't think there's a whole lot of people that are going to doubt that. You look at what the Cowboys have done this season, and Dallas, we talk a lot about the 49ers because we're 49ers channel, 49ers fans. You look at what the 49ers have done in this 11-game win streak. They're at about 31.5 points per game. That's really good stuff. You look at what the Cowboys have done over that same period. Over the last 11 weeks, the Dallas Cowboys have scored over 33 points. That's pretty high scoring. And I don't know if Kansas City has put together that kind of a streak. I'd have to go and look at their numbers. I think the difference for me is that for the 49ers, the struggle is against stopping teams that will commit to the run game. And Kansas City, although they had success, they don't commit to it. I felt like the 49ers' lack of success against Kansas City had a little bit more to do with some injuries and that it slowed them down a little bit leading up into that game. But again, I could be wrong. Most of the time I'm not, but sometimes I am. I'm not perfect, even though I'll joke around and say that I am. I just think that this is a matchup for the 49ers that is as tough. If it's not the toughest, it's the toughest that they face within their conference, within the NFC. The Cowboys will be. And then I think if they can get by the Cowboys and they take on Philadelphia next week, Philadelphia will present the toughest challenge, because Philadelphia and Dallas, I think I think what we've seen is, and I hadn't really said this a whole lot, but I know a lot of other people did. I think that you look at the NFC for the greater part of the season, especially over the second half, and it's been Eagles, Cowboys, and 49ers. Put those three teams in any order that you want, but those have been the three top teams in the eyes of many over the second half of the season. We go into divisional round weekend, the final four for the NFC, have all three of those teams playing. Unfortunately for the 49ers, they get matched up with one of them. That's one of the reasons why I thought if they could have been the 3 seed and to let, the way that I originally thought was that the 49ers would be if they can get the 3 seed, you got the 49ers against the Giants. That's a win, I thought. And then you look at Minnesota against Seattle. I think Minnesota beat Seattle at home. So you get Minnesota, 49ers in Minnesota in the divisional round, Dallas and Eagles in the divisional round on the other side. That allows the 49ers to get to the NFC Championship before having to face one of those top 2 teams. Didn't work out that way. And so we'll see how it works out on Sunday, because that's going to be the big day. And who knows, maybe the Giants win anyway out in Philadelphia. They look pretty good against a somewhat off, Minnesota team that struggles to stop anybody. So let me get into this really quick. Let me pull up Korean 49er. Hey, Korean, how you doing?
It's good. Whatever reason, StreamYard's not allowing the camera to work right now for whatever reason.
Okay. No worries. Well, at least we see who it is because you got your name on the screen.
Yep. So, to me, the biggest key for me is the offensive line of the 49ers versus the Cowboys pass rush. I think the Cowboys have one of the best pass rushes in the league this year. And I'm feeling that Parsons will be on McGlinchey's side more often than not, rushing off that end, because he's the weaker tackle.
And if that happens, that's going to be a changeup. And looking at some numbers, listening to some people talk, not me, but just some other people who cover the Cowboys. Parsons lines up on the right side of the Cowboys defense about 65% of the time this season. In recent weeks, it's been as high as 81%. So he lines up more often on the side of Trent Williams. So if you do have Parsons over McGlinchey, it's going to be the result of a change up on the Cowboys side of something that they haven't done all season long. Doesn't mean they won't. That's one of those fun parts about the matchup. We'll see if they do that. Even if they don't do that, it's still going to be DeMarcus Lawrence over there. Lawrence is no slouch either when it comes to pass rushing. So either way, it's going to be, I think, an interesting matchup for Mike McGlinchey. Let me ask you this, though, because you mentioned the offensive line in that matchup. Do you think the 49ers offensive line is better than last year with McGlinchey out there instead of Tom Compton?
They've been pretty good this year. McGlinchey has given up his fair share of sacks, but they haven't been as costly as other times. But the line's played pretty well this year. And I just wanted to see them give Brock plenty of time because of the pass rushes. We saw what they did against Tom Brady, yet alone Tom Brady is 45 and, he's not 25 and can't move around as well as he did.
Yeah, you're right. But this is it's okay to call out the offensive line and to say that that's a concern, because I can understand that being a concern. It's one of the questions that I asked in my pregame write up for the Press Democrat was, what's going to happen when it comes to, can they handle the pressure? I labeled it as, can Brock Purdy handle the pressure? But in reality, it's not just Brock Purdy. It's that offensive front, and can they stop him? Because Dallas is one of the best in the league at getting to the quarterback. They have the second highest sack percentage in the league, 8.3. That number has improved over last year when the 49ers beat Dallas last year. They were closer where the Niners are now, which is about 6%, right? So they've gotten better as a pass rushing team, and to worry about that pressure, I think is accurate. The one positive that I will say, just I'm looking at some of the numbers myself, Purdy's been good against pressure. He's actually has of this 8 quarterbacks left in the playoffs, he has the highest quarterback rating of all of them. It's right around 94, 97, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't remember right off the top of my head, but it's been pretty high. And so I would say, if it gets into that situation, I'm okay with him doing that. And in a lot of ways, if they're blitzing, that benefits Brock Purdy. If they're getting home with 4, then that's where I think you might have a little bit more issue.
Yeah. My thing is I also want to see how the defensive line for the 49ers does against the reshuffled Cowboys line.
Yes, that's going to be a big one, because the Cowboys aren't going to have their starting left tackle. He's been rolled out, and yeah, that's going to be all that jumbling around, and I think it's going to be a rookie starting over at left tackle, and we'll see what they can do against Nick Bosa. And on that side, it is that defensive line, and how can they get to the quarterback? That's a really good one. And for me, it's, can that defense stop the run? Can the 49ers stop the run? I know their numbers for the season are really good, but in their two of the last 3 games, they faced teams that wanted to run. Seattle last week, the Vegas Raiders 2 weeks before that. And both of those teams were able to gain almost a yard more per carry than the 49ers have allowed all season long. So for the entire season. So their run defense hasn't been quite as stout as you'd want it to be. And if the Cowboys are coming in, they're going to want to run this ball. Mike McCarthy said that during his press conference day before yesterday, I believe it was. And if the 49ers aren't ready to stop this run game, it could be a long day, because they've struggled. Their worst performances have been against teams that run the ball.
Yeah, so I also want to see if the secondary holds up, because the Cowboys also have a lot of good receivers that can go downfield, including a good tight end, and CeeDee Lamb, and gosh, I can't remember some of the other receivers off the top of my head, but I know that.
No, it's not hard to forget the Cowboys receivers, because other than Lamb, it's guys you never really heard of. before. Lamb's got 156 targets this year. Their next closest receiver in terms of targets, as far as a wide receiver, is Noah Brown and Michael Gallup at 74. So those two combined have fewer targets than Lamb has. And you talk. And the one thing for me is Lamb's their big guy, the guy that they're going to get the ball to a lot, but his longest reception for the year is 39 yards. So I don't think he's a guy that they're going to have to necessarily worry about getting behind him all that much. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be put, they'll be able to keep in front of them. When it comes to Lamb, he really works a lot out of the slot. He's really good as an interior receiver. He can work as an outside guy, but he kind of works better as an inside guy. I'm interested to see how they match up with him, because last year they were able to match up with K'Wan Williams. How do they do that this year? Because there's no K'Wan Williams. So do they put Jimmy Ward in there? Do they move Charvarius Ward? Are they letting him play inside a little bit? How exactly do they try to match up? That's going to be one of my things that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah. So one last point. They always say Dallas is America's team, and they say sometimes the 49ers is America's team. I can't stand that moniker. Let's just win. Let's just find a way to win these next games and win a Super Bowl. That's all I care about.
Hey, they call it America's team. That's an old thing. I don't know if they're America's team anymore. They definitely get people fired up though, and it's I gotta tell you, the amount of times that I heard on the radio this week people talking about how the Cowboys or how they not only have the stars on their helmet, they have the stars on the field. Makes me want to throw up. I get tired of hearing that after a while. So it's going to be an interesting game. We'll see how it all goes down, and I'm looking forward to it. I grew up with Niners Cowboys back in the 80s and 90s, and it's really fun to see it replaying again.
So, yep, that's it. Thank you, Jack, and you have a nice weekend.
Awesome. Thank you for calling. It was good to talk to you again.
Yep, no problem. Appreciate it.
All right, take care. All right, we got a Korean Niner, and right off the bat from him, that was a good call. And we're going to move over to Peter Lee. Peter, you there?
Hey, Jack, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Can't wait for the game. It's my first time calling in, so kind of nervous, but I'll take my time. So,
don't worry. What's going on?
Yeah. So, I watched the game, the wild card game from last year, and I remember Nick Bosa. He had a concussion, and he was out for the second half of the Cowboys game. Mm-hmm. I think from what I watched, and I think without Bosa last year for the second half, it made the game kind of closer than usually would, because without Bosa, like the Cowboys' offensive line kind of took advantage within the line of scrimmage, right? Because they were, and our pass rush was getting there, but like without Nick Bosa, like who was our impact player, of course, like he had like a wide open. Was it Dak? He had like a wide open gap for that rushing touchdown in the fourth quarter, I think. So I think in that case for last year's game, it was much closer. But I think if we had Bosa last year, if he was healthy for the second half, then we could have just like shut them down, even though like the Cowboys made it closer, and until like the last minute of the fourth quarter, So,
well, I think
yeah.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, and so I think like now with Bosa healthy and everything, hopefully he's healthy throughout this game. So I think he's gonna be more impactful in a sense, and I think he'll have a breakout game. That's what I'm thinking. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of things. You mentioned Nick Bosa getting knocked out in the first half last year. In addition to that, you had Fred Warner get knocked out of the game. Remember, he got knocked out as well. Then in the second half, you also had Jimmy Garoppolo getting taken down and landing on his shoulder and injuring his throwing shoulder, which caused some issues there. I'm not saying that that's the reason why, but in the fourth quarter, I think it was the fourth quarter, you have Garoppolo throwing an interception on a bad throw, which helped set up one of the Dak Prescott touchdown that you talked about. So,
yeah,
you have a healthy Nick Bosa, you have a healthy Fred Warner, you have a healthy Brock Purdy instead of Jimmy Garoppolo. You have a Christian McCaffrey who wasn't on your roster last year. You have a healthy Mike McGlinchey at right tackle instead. I think you're better off. I think at center you have a guy who's going to the Pro Bowl as an alternate this year. Alex Mack, was good last year, but I think we're seeing Brendel play at a pretty high level. So there's a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences at the same time. And I think some of those changes for the 49ers are pretty strong. I've talked a lot about this game, and I think my takes on it is I think this is going to be a really tough game.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I can be wrong. And this is a situation where the 49ers strength of running the ball is a weakness for Dallas, especially with their ability to get to the edge. I'm looking forward to seeing how the 49ers attack this defense. If they come out and they are attacking the edges with Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, how does that work? Because I really can see them coming out and just running the screen and they're running that quick screen, get the ball out there and make those linebackers have to chase it down and stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how they match up.
Yeah, definitely with the Cowboys pass rush this year. Like, I think the screen game is definitely going to be a factor to limit the amount of times that Brock Purdy has to stand in the backfield to throw the ball or whatever. And so I think just trying to get out the ball quickly will neutralize the pass rush for the Cowboys. So
yeah, that's one of the ways to slow them down. And if the 49ers have run the ball really well over this 11 game streak that they've won games on. I don't remember the exact number. It's over 130 yards a game. It's over 136 yards a game, I think, is what they're averaging.
Oh yeah, I think I saw a stat where I think I saw on Twitter. I'm not sure who, but they said the Cowboys this year they're 2-4 if they gave up 150 yards rushing to the opposing opponent this year. That's why.
I think. Well, I know you follow me on Twitter, so I think that's one of the things that I put out is the 49ers are 2-4 when they've allowed 99 yards or more on the ground.
Oh yeah.
The response back to that, though, that somebody put out, which was really good, and I used it today because I looked at the numbers to make sure, was the Cowboys have 8 games this season when they've allowed over 136 yards rushing, and in those 8 games they're 3-5. And you look at this, and the 49ers have a clear strength here, and if they can put the ball in the end zone, I think they can put points on the board. Obviously, when they get the ball in the end zone, you're putting points on the board. But if they can finish these drives off that I think they're going to have with touchdowns, I think it becomes a situation where their offense becomes their best defense and forces Dak Prescott to have to beat them, and that plays into the strength of this defense.
Yeah, for sure. And then last year, our rushing attack was only Elijah Mitchell and Deebo essentially, which was only a two-head monster. And since this year we trade for Christian McCaffrey, so that makes it 3 with CMC, Deebo Samuel, and Elijah Mitchell. So definitely they're gonna get a lot of touches, definitely. So it's gonna be explosive to watch for sure.
I think so. And then you got play action off of that, and you've got all kinds of different things. And there's been talk this week. I know ESPN kind of brought it to the forefront as far as the 49ers and their use of 21 personnel, 2 backs and one tight end, and all the different things that they can do for it. And that's going to be a lot of fun to see how Dallas tries to match up with that. Do they come out with an extra safety? Because Dallas really doesn't play with 3 linebackers ever. So I think there's a lot of things about what Dallas does that kind of plays into the 49ers' favor here, especially with their aggressiveness. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this whole thing matches up. Because I think Dallas's offense has an opportunity here to have some success against the 49ers defense. And I think the 49ers defense even more so against that Dallas defense.
Yeah, so I heard Javon, was it Curse, one of the safeties for Cowboys, is questionable, but he said he's kind of 100% to play. So I think probably if I were Kyle Shanahan, I would just attack directly with a play action pass directly over Curse, trying to see if he's actually healthy or not. That's my opinion. So.
Yeah, well, and the way that it works in the NFL now is if you're questionable, you're likely going to play. It's when you're doubtful. It's either out, you're doubtful, or you're questionable. He's listed as questionable. He's likely going to play. I don't think he missed practice at all this week. I think he was at least a limited participant. You're talking about Curse, the safety.
Yeah.
But you're right. He dinged up his knee against Tampa. And so absolutely short week, having to fly out here. You're going to want to make sure you're going to want to see how well that knee's working as soon as you can.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't be surprised to see them take some shots at him, or in true 49er style, it might not even be a shot with a throw, a pass. It might be a shot where they send the whole offense just running the ball right at that guy to see if he can stand up to it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for allowing me to go into your channel today.
I appreciate it. I've seen your name over in the comment section a bunch. Like I said, I see you on Twitter, so it was great to get a chance to talk to you. Don't ever be nervous. I'm just another guy like everybody else. So whenever you're ready to come on here, just do it again.
I see. Thank you very much. Take care.
All right. Take care. All right. Great call from Peter. Looking over in the comment section, we got Raphael over here. He is on fire this week. He brought this up earlier yesterday, I think it was, how the Jags ran on Dallas for 192 yards, 500 yards of offense. They put up 40 points in that game, 34 on offense. They won it on the pick six on a tip ball that they got intercepted along the right sidelines. That's kind of the Jacksonville way, right? Make a big play on defense to win a big game. They did that to get to the playoffs. They used their defense to keep them in the game after a rough start from their offense. Last week against the Chargers, their defense allowing away 3 points in the second half, so they could pull off that comeback victory over the LA down there. So those are some good numbers though. And Raphael also comes in and says the 49ers are going to rush for 200 yards. That's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't think it is. You look at the Cowboys have given up 200 yards on a couple of occasions. They gave up 200 yards up to Green Bay in their loss to Green Bay back in middle of November. They gave up 240 the week before to the Bears. That's a little bit different though, because you have Justin Fields running. But the Cowboys struggle when they give up 136 yards or more. They do have a tough time. And the Commanders just a couple weeks ago, 151 yards on the ground. Even the Houston Texans were at 114, Colts at 106. That's the one game to me that stands out. A lot of people have talked about this Washington game just a couple weeks ago, the game that the Cowboys lost, as one in which, to show that the Cowboys aren't good. And I think I think we're missing a little bit there, because that week's 18 game, Cowboys weren't really playing for anything. I understand that if the Eagles had lost, they were going to have a chance to win the NFC East. I think that pretty much everybody knew that game, what the outcome was going to be between the Eagles and the backups of the New York Giants. I don't even think the 49ers thought that they had a chance to actually take the number one seed. Their whole goal, and the reason why the 49ers went so hard in week 18 was because Minnesota had already won earlier in that day, and the 49ers wanted to have that number 2 seed, and so that's why they played it the way they did. But that you go back to that Indianapolis Colts game, it was a Sunday night game back at the beginning of December 4th, and that was a game in which the Colts pulled to within 3 points late in the third quarter of that game. That was a 21-19 game with 3:43 left in the third quarter against a really bad Colts team. Now that game gets on the hand in the fourth quarter because basically Indianapolis couldn't hold the ball. They turned it over 4 times on back-to-back possessions, and that's what fed Dallas to get 33 straight points. But and it ends up being a blowout. But you look at this, and there's a lot of situations like that. But also, the 49ers, if you want to play that game, the 49ers have some ugly losses too, right? Chicago, week 1. Denver in week 3, ugly losses both. The loss to Atlanta, that was an ugly one. And those are 3 bad losses. If those 3 losses, if the 49ers win any of those games, this game isn't happening, and the 49ers are playing the Giants on tomorrow, because the 49ers would have the number 1 seed. Think about that for a minute. Bears, Broncos, Falcons. Win just one of those games, and you are the number 1 seed in the NFC. But instead, you're number 2, and you got Dallas coming in, and we'll see how it all turns out. But as the caretaker says, thank you very much, caretaker. He says, hammer that like button. Please do, everybody. Hit that like button if you like what you're seeing. If you're checking it out and you're new to the channel and you aren't subscribed, hit that little subscribe button as well. And when you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you get notified every time I go live. Cal Bear 949 says, what if any adjustments do you see Ryan making to counter that attack? Concerned that Las Vegas did almost the same thing as Kansas City, and the Flyers defense seemed to have no counter. We saw it last week as well. The 49ers defense and with D'Amico Ryans, they don't seem to have any kind of a counter to teams like that other than turnovers. This is where DJ Jones, being a member of the Denver Broncos now, comes into play. 49ers have been, for the most part, good against the run throughout this season, but that's because I think a lot of the reason they've been so good about it is because there's not very many teams in the NFL who are willing to stay committed to the run game. We saw Atlanta stay committed to it. We knew that they were going to be committed to it going in. We saw how that game turned out. Denver was able to stay committed to it, but that was because the 49ers offense was playing horrible and couldn't get any points, because that should have been a blowout early on just with how good that 49ers defense played in that game. I think there were 6 or 7 3-and-outs in that one. But because of the offense not being able to do what they could do, Denver was able to stay on the ground and kind of maintain and keep that game close and keep that clock spinning. And against this 49ers offense, that's one of the best things to do is to keep your offense on the field, keep the clock running, limit the number of possessions. Even if you're not scoring points, if you can keep it to a one-score game, you just keep running the ball at the 49ers. Don't let that offense have the ball. And that's what we've seen teams do against them that have given them some trouble. Against Seattle, the 49ers, or against Las Vegas, the 49ers got the interceptions. The first one, the Drake Jackson pick, and then in overtime, that's what helped them come back to tie that game up. And then they get the interception at the end to set up the field goal. And then last week against Seattle, you see Seattle, even though they're down by 10 points, they stay within their game plan. They score to make it 10-7. 49ers can't get in the end zone, so it's now 13-7. They stick with what they're going to do. They get to midfield, touchdown. They have the lead. Second half, the 49ers are up by 6 points after scoring a touchdown their opening drive. And Seattle sticks to the ground game, sticks to their balance. They move it down the field. They get inside the deep red zone of the 49ers, get a holding penalty on a completed pass, backs them up. And then that, because they're backed up, that leads to the strip sack from Menahu. So I think for the 49ers, their best defense really is their offense right now. I mean, their defense plays at a high level, but the 49ers need to get up on Dallas. Think the 94. That was one of the reasons why in 1994 the 49ers were able to do it, was because they got 21 points in the first 5 minutes of the game. That's a lot likely to happen, but when you get opportunities to put touchdowns on the board, you've got to put touchdowns. You can't kick field goals this week. If the 49ers are kicking field goals on Sunday, it's not a good deal. And even that being said, the 49ers scored 16 points in the first half against Seattle. That's going to keep you within a score in any game. So get touchdowns when you're in a position. If it's 4th and 1, like you were against Washington on your opening possession, kick the field goal, get the points. Don't pass them up. Get the points when you can, but you got to try to get the ball into the end zone as well. I understand that might sound a little counterintuitive, but I think beyond that, it's hard to say that there's really anything that D'Amico Ryans can do. They don't have, they just don't have anybody else up front that's really a run plugger. Their linebackers are good at it, but sometimes they're a little slow to fire. You got to be careful, because once you start bringing guys up, that's when you're vulnerable to the big play. We saw a 49ers team that was kind of spying on the run get beat over the top early against Vegas. So it's interesting, because that's one of the things with D'Amico Ryans. He does a very good job of adjusting mid-game, but other than that, his team has struggled at times. We got East Coast Red Gold Podcast says, "Hey Jack, good to have you on. Great to see you there." Raphael 5629ers, he said earlier, he says that Bosa is going to have 2.5 sacks and he's going to feast on Dak. There you go. Dallas can't stop the run, says 49ers for life. For the most part, you're right. Let's see what else we've got. If Pollard was a Niner, he will be our RB3. Okay, now this is an interesting one, because I might lose a few folks on this one, but this was something that crazy Skip Bayless mentioned earlier this week, was that he would rather he thinks that Pollard is more explosive than Christian McCaffrey. I think I think if you want to just look at this from a numbers perspective, just from a numbers perspective, let's not talk about the other way that it affects the offense. Let's talk just about that one player. Let's just look at Tony Pollard versus Christian McCaffrey. Let's don't look at anything else. Let's just look at those two players and their averages, just based off of averages. If you look at Tony Pollard, his average per carry, 5.2 yards. Christian McCaffrey, 4.7. So Pollard has a higher yards per attempt than Christian McCaffrey. Okay, let's switch it over to the reception side. As a receiver, it's a similar story. Tony Pollard, I think, is averaging 9.5 yards per reception this season. And then you look at that with Christian McCaffrey, and Christian McCaffrey, in terms of yards per catch, is at 8.9. So Pollard has a higher yards per rushing attempt than Christian McCaffrey. Pollard has a higher yards per reception than Christian McCaffrey. So I, from that perspective, I guess you could kind of say that the difference there is, the number of opportunities. Pollard has 39 catches compared to 52 for McCaffrey, 159 attempts for McCaffrey compared to 193 for Pollard. So from the averages alone, those numbers would kind of skew towards Tony Pollard. If Tony Pollard was on the 49ers, would he be running back 3? Probably, I guess. You're saying that he's going to be behind McCaffrey. He'd be behind. I don't know enough about Tony Pollard to know if he could do all the things that McCaffrey does as a receiver and affect the game in that way. Being able to line up in all these different areas. I don't know about that. So that's where, that whole thing is interesting, because McCaffrey, he affects the game just by being on the field, whether he's touching the ball or not. I don't know if Tony Pollard really affects the way the defense reacts that same way. So we got Celts Chronicles in the house as well. So it's what up, Jack and Faithful. What up, Celts? Good to have you on board. Hope you're doing well. Hope your shows are going good over on your channel. If you guys don't already, make sure you get over to Celts Chronicles here on YouTube. Check him out as well. Does a lot of good for your stuff. Had him on. We did a show together during the before the season, right before training camp. Was doing a bunch of roundtables, and he was one of the guys we were able to get on. So check him out, because he does a lot of good work over there. We'll look at this. We got a Cowboys fan podcast. What up, Niner gang? Excited for Sunday. Just curious, is Brock Purdy as good as his record? If so, could Dallas be in trouble? Absolutely, Brock Purdy's as good as his record. It's really not even. It's absolutely is the answer to that. The 49ers offense, since they brought in Christian McCaffrey, has completely changed. They're averaging about 30 points a game, 31.5 or somewhere around there. But once they put Brock Purdy in there, now it's up to 33 or 33. McCaffrey changed the offense. Purdy changes a little bit more. Purdy is able to hit all areas of the field, and the addition of the ability to run is where Christian McCaffrey differentiates himself from his predecessor, Jimmy Garoppolo, is his ability to run, move with his legs, and also he's going to take the shots down the field. I would say if we go back and we look at some of the throws from last year, you probably remember there was a route to Brandon Ayuk on the left side that he missed. He was wide open, and Garoppolo misses him by 5 feet. I think that's a catch, and that's a big play with Brock Purdy. He doesn't miss those. Brock Purdy usually doesn't miss those. I know he missed one at the start of the game against last week in rainy conditions, but it's not going to be raining. And I was at practice on Wednesday, and the ball never touched the ground. We got in the period during the time that the media was able to watch practice, Brock Purdy, every ball that he threw was caught and never touched the ground, and that's what you're looking for. So I would say yes, Brock Purdy is as advertised, and I think the Cowboys are going to be in for a long day, in part because of Brock Purdy, in part because of that 49ers offensive line and that running game. I think that's going to be really interesting to watch, and I think the Cowboys are going to be able to stop them at times, but I think overall, I would say this is going to be a 49er game here. Randall Riley in the house with a nice smiley face. We have Blind Tom, who says it's cold. I own. He's over not too far from me, actually. Stay warm, Niners. Absolutely, stay warm. That's why I'm in the house. It's cold outside, so that's why I got to do this one here. ADS Outdoor says Drake Jackson active on Sunday. That should actually be a question mark because we don't know. The 49ers, the cool part with this game, the 49ers, as far as activating Drake Jackson, he's already active. He's on their active roster. We'll see if he's actually active. We'll find that out at around 2 o'clock on Sunday. The 49ers have only 2 players that are not going to be available to them on Sunday to choose from: Jimmy Garoppolo and Ambry Thomas. Those are the only 2 players that rolled out. Every other player on the roster and on the practice squad is a possibility of being up on game day. Drake Jackson has missed some time in recent weeks against teams that run the ball well or in conditions that aren't really conducive to a lot of throwing. I would expect to see. I would not be shocked if he does not play this week, or if he does play this week. I would be, either way, I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't go. Let's see what else we got here. Who said Bosa didn't get a pressure? It was Bosa that moved quarterback into the strip sack. You're right, and I think it's more of he didn't get a hit. There were no quarterback hits. There were no sacks. I think that's what it was with Bosa in the last game. In terms of pressure, you're absolutely right that it was Bosa's pressure down in the third quarter there that forced Smith to move to his right, which put him right into the passing lane, into the lane of where Menhu was coming on the stunt, and Menhu gets his hand on it. It was definitely a good play from both of those guys working together to force that fumble and get that turnover. That's usually how football works. So we look at one guy as being the playmaker when it takes a bunch of other guys. Like for example, we're given Deebo Samuel high fives for a catch and run down the sidelines on a 74-yard touchdown. When that's not a touchdown likely if Brandon Ayuk isn't out front blocking his ass off, 20, 30 yards down the field to help create that lane down the sideline for him to run. Just like the couple of other runs where Ayuk had really good blocks on the edge. He's out there leading McCaffrey down the sideline on that 68-yard run, things like that. So it's an all around. It's always a team game. It's never a time point where we say it's just one player. Usually it's not. Sometimes there might be a pass play like where the guy goes up and just makes a crazy catch or something like that. But who is Diameter Lenore covering? Depends on if the 49ers decide that they want to have Charvarius Ward travel. Because if Charvarius Ward is traveling around, I think that he'll end up on CeeDee Lamb, which would leave Diameter Lenore on the other guys, which are Noah Brown and T.Y. Hilton. Just depending on where they line up, they got Noah Brown. Noah Brown and Michael Gallup are tied for the second most targets amongst Cowboys receivers this year at 74. So I think that's probably where you're going to see Diameter Lenore for the most part on Sunday is on those guys, maybe a little bit of T.Y. Hilton. But one of the things you look at this Cowboys team and you compare it to the 49ers is they don't have they have only 3 guys that have a reception over 51 yards this year. Tony Pollard has a 68-yard reception. T.Y. Hilton has a 52-yarder. That was actually his first catch as a Cowboy. And then Brown has a 51-yarder. You compare that to like the 49ers who have Deebo Samuel, Ross Valley, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, all 50. You have Juwan Jennings at 44, which is more than most of the Cowboys, and Ray McLeod even at 42. You compare that to the Cowboys, like I said, there's nobody in the 40s. CeeDee Lamb, as great as he's been this season for Dallas, his longest reception so far this season is 39 yards. So we'll see how that works. Would I activate Drake Jackson on Sunday? I don't think he's necessary. I don't see Drake Jackson as a guy who really holds up against the run all that well. Good pass rusher, not great, but good. And with Amenahu and these other guys that they have, just Jordan Willis and so on, they have a couple of really good defensive tackles already. They can also slide inside. So I don't know. I would say I probably would go against him depending on if you're thinking of bringing another defensive tackle or another defensive back, I think that's where that might change. So there's that piece, and then there was some Jimmy Garoppolo news today. I know you guys all like to hear about Jimmy G. Jimmy Garoppolo actually was out at 49ers, not at practice, but he's been on the field this week working out. That's good news as he's coming back from that foot injury. Sounds like it's not likely that he's going to be ready in time for the championship game. So we'll see how that works out. But the other news at the quarterback position is Brock Purdy. And I don't think it's a surprise. There was a report today from Mike Silver, who has a lot of good contacts around the league, talks with a lot of coaches, talks with a lot of people high up in organizations. And according to Mike Silver, he said that he was told by a couple of high-ranking officials with the 49ers that Brock Purdy is the guy going into 2023. And to that I say, yeah, I get it. No kidding. I said that a couple of weeks ago. I know I'm not speaking with high-ranking 49ers officials. I'm not a veteran journalist like Mike Silver, who does a great job. And so I'm not knocking him. What I'm saying is this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. It's news because it got put into the news cycle. But if you've been watching the 49ers play this season, I don't think it's a surprise. It shouldn't be. The things that Brock Purdy has been doing is everything that the 49ers could have asked for in a quarterback. The ability to move, the ability to, in scrambles, the ability to hit throws at all levels. The guy is a leader. I was a Mac Jones guy in the draft. Purdy is better than Mac Jones, but the reason I liked Mac Jones is why we're seeing the success of Purdy is that I felt like Jones was the guy who could make all the throws that the 49ers would ask him to make. I felt like he threw with really good anticipation and was going to get the ball on time. I felt like he was a guy who could just work well from within the pocket. I also felt like Jones's athleticism was a little underrated. But I'm not crazy enough to say that his athleticism and the athleticism of Mac Jones and Brock Purdy are the same. They're not. Purdy has better feet in terms of his quickness than Mac Jones. But I think what we're seeing from the 49ers offense is the direction that I would have liked to seen him take. And on top of it, they got it instead of using the number, what was it, 12th pick, it became the 3. They got this guy at 262. And the biggest difference between Mac Jones and Brock Purdy is the person. Really. Mac Jones, for whatever, he had some goofy stuff that came out before the draft. He's had some goofy plays since he joined the NFL, grabbing guys, and twisting their ankles, diving at guys from, when a defender is running for a touchdown, like diving at guys way behind the play to take him out, stuff like that. And he just kind of seems like a weird cat compared to Brock Purdy, who just seems what you see of him and what you hear from his teammates is that this is a guy who they can get behind. He seems like a guy that's got a good head on his shoulders, and so they got a better person in Brock Purdy than where Mac Jones would have been. That's the biggest thing. They got the better person, and heard him talking yesterday, and he's basically like, "Hey, man, this is football. It's just football, man. It's just football. At the end of the day, I'm a football player because that's my job. It doesn't define who I am." And you see him going around. I know that he doesn't make millions of dollars like these other quarterbacks, but the guy shows up in jeans and a sweatshirt every week, and I always kind of get a chuckle out of it because he looks like he's going to chemistry class. And when it comes to chemistry class with Brock Purdy, that chemistry is running the 49ers offense because he does it at a high level. I'm going to bring in Kelts. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing, Jack?
I'm good. What's going on?
Not much, man. Just chilling on a good old Friday, chasing my animals around, just chilling with my kids. I seen you on. I seen the opportunity. I was like, hey, let me go chop it up with Jack for a minute. So here I am.
Absolutely. Let's finish up the show together. It's almost been an hour. And what's your thought on this game coming up?
You were a little choppy right there. I don't know if
Oh,
it's on my end, but repeat that, please.
that's probably on me. What are your
Okay.
thoughts, for the game on Sunday? How do you think this thing's going to play out?
Whew. Man, you know what? I have one concern. I have one major, major, major concern, and that's my confidence level. I am supremely confident about this game. Um, and that does make me, a little nervous. Like, man, I hope I'm pretty sure the 49ers aren't, who knows? Maybe the 49ers are as confident as me, but I just feel so confident about this game. I feel like we just match up well across the entire board. I feel like we can rattle Dak Prescott, I seen us do it with arguably a lesser defense last year. I seen us, to me it felt like we dominated Dallas on their home turf, without like the extra rest. And I was with Jimmy playing awful, you go back and watch it, which I'm sure you have. I know you dissect things and you really dive into things. So, he did not have a great game. Ayuk did really well, with his routes and was open and missed the open shot, threw the lob that got intercepted. This, that, and other. I know that's last year, but this coming up forward, I guess another concern maybe could be possibly Brock Purdy finally having not a great game because he's done so well. I mean, Brock Purdy's done so well up to this point. It's been remarkable. It's almost been magical the way he has started his NFL career. I had a comment come in. I was trying to ask the faithful, hey, when was the last time we've seen a rookie start this well? And it made me think back to like Magic Johnson with the Lakers in 1980. I couldn't really think of a NFL rookie quarterback that had this great of a start. And one guy mentioned Otto Graham, 1946, 1946. And when you got to go back that long, I mean, hey, we're truly in a great, hey, what a freaking season. And I hope Purdy's worst game doesn't come in these playoffs. Like, save it for next year, Purdy. Save any rookie mistakes. Just save it for next year, please.
When it comes to, if we're talking about football, the things that we're seeing from Brock Purdy are wild. But Ben Roethlisberger, he had a great rookie season. Was it the rookie season? I think it was. He won a whole bunch of games, almost went to the Super Bowl. I think he was like 11-0 or 12-0 or some crazy number like that before losing the championship game that year. Who was it? Joe Flacco got to the championship game. Even everybody's favorite Mark Sanchez got to the AFC championship game and had a couple of good years his first couple of years, when they were able to run the ball a lot and they were able to sit behind other guys. But I don't know. It's different with Brock Purdy though, because he's doing things that those guys didn't do. He's more successful through the air. He's more of a threat to throw the ball, I think, than really what Roethlisberger or Flacco or Sanchez were in those first years for them. So it's just different. And then also look at the talent around him. I mean, say what you want about Purdy and the talent, though, because Joe Montana had a hell of a lot of talent around him every year that he played with the 49ers too, right? And you've got to have talent. You've got to be in the right spots. You've got to have the right coach. It all plays together. But what Brock Purdy's doing, we haven't seen any other 49ers quarterbacks be able to do. And you got to give the guys props. I almost called them something else because Raphael over here talking about cow patties. I almost said the wrong thing. I caught my eye.
Yeah, I don't have the chat up, man. Hey, there's sometimes whenever I hop on shows, I'll just I'll just put it on the large screen where I stay focused because I'll start peeking at the chat, but hey, hey, what up, Raphael? Yeah, man, great support. Hey, like Raphael says, hit that dang like button. Mitch Wisnowski, that thing, Debo stiff arm that thing like you did on Parsons last year.
That's right. I'm looking forward to this game. I think there's a chance for 49ers to lose, which I think is always makes it good, right? Like,
yeah.
I haven't felt like that with a 49er game since I can't tell you when. I mean, they went into this they went into that stretch of games where everybody kind of said, what they do in December is going to tell you if this team is good or not. And they went into that stretch of games, and I looked at it and I was like, there's really nobody on this schedule that worries you. The way that these teams, line up, there's really, maybe Derek Carr in Las Vegas, just because it's Derek Carr and it's a name that you recognize, but these other guys, Geno Smith, no. The Cardinals give me a break, and so on and so forth. Kind of looked at that, and Miami was doing really well, but Tua, no. And so from that standpoint, this is different though, because now you've got a Dak Prescott who I know Dak's thrown a lot of picks, but he's the best quarterback that they're going to face in the NFC, I think, before the Super Bowl. I think Dak Prescott is better than Jalen Hurts, and if they can get through this game, I think it sets up really well for them.
It feels like we're talking about a 10-year veteran. It feels like just the confidence that Brock Purdy has. You could see it throughout the entire faithful, and it's just it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like, I mean, he's going into what? I mean, his 8th. Would this be his 8th start or 7th? Well, regardless, 8th, 7th, 10th,
seventh start, 8th game. Because the Miami game, I know he didn't start that game, but he played the whole game. He played more. He had more plays in that Miami game than he's had in almost every other game that he's played so far this season.
Yeah, what, 37 throws, I believe, or something like that. And was like, Jesus, like, hey, there we go, Kyle. Let's go. We've been waiting to see the trust and the confidence, and it feels like Purdy is giving Kyle trust. The faithful trust. He trusts in himself, the confidence. Everybody. The cool, the calm, the collected. And it is reminiscent of a Joe Montana. I'm not talking about the style of play or the way they look, the throwing motion, but that, hey, is that John Candy over there? That kind of attitude. And then he has the fire. And then you could see the fire, you could see it on the field. And then he comes off the field and he's like Peter Parker. He's like a Clark Kent, and he's like super chill, down to earth, faith based, just like he said, and you could tell when, you could see that certain light in someone when they are faith based. I'm just using the words that he used in the presser. I like how he said that. Hey, that's how I stay grounded. That's my foundation. That's where my seed is planted. That's why I'm calm, cool, and collected off the field. And then, hey, when I get on the field, I get to show that fire. And hey, man, he's the real deal, like Holyfield, man. That's just, I hope it continues. Like I said in the beginning, I hope we just get to see, hey, man, let's lock it up with Mooney Ward. I think he could bounce back. Let's just see that speed. I heard, I believe it was Grant a couple of times talking about, hey, D'Amico, let's see the creativity. Let's see, let's get Nick Bosa some help. Nick Bosa hasn't had a sack in 3 games, and for sure, hey, let's see it. Let's see all the let's see the bag out of D'Amico's hands. Let's see the bag come from Kyle. I hope. And it's just so cool. We get to face Dallas 2 years in a row. We're in the playoffs 2 years in a row. That hasn't happened under Kyle Shanahan. So we're in good times right now, and it's just fun, to be honest.
I think we really are. I said that last night at the opening of my show that I did on the Hammerhead show with Rob Shue last night, that if you're 30 years or younger, you've heard the stories about the great years of the 49ers, but you weren't alive for it. You don't have any actual recollection of what it was like to watch those teams. And I truly feel like with where we are now, we're watching that over again.
Yeah.
If you go back, and I know it sounds crazy to people who watched it happen, or even maybe even more crazy, maybe even to the people who didn't see it, but Kyle Shanahan and Bill Walsh, their numbers are extremely close. Year 3, both guys get to the Super Bowl. Obviously, Walsh has that leg up because he won that game, right? Mm-hmm. They both missed the playoffs in the 4th year. Year 5, they both go to win 10 games. They both go to the NFC Championship game. They both lose by a field goal. And now here in year 6, the 49ers are battling the Cowboys with the possibility of getting back to the Super Bowl. That was the year that Walsh had them at 15-1, and they beat the Dolphins. It's just so crazy to me how the success of this team and the pattern of this team is so close to what they were back in that 79 to 80, 79 through 88 run. Hopefully they can, for the 49ers fans, it'd be great to see them be able to, get a Super Bowl victory this year and end that drought, so you guys actually know what it's like to win a Super Bowl for a change.
Real talk, well said. Yeah, hey, for them to get a taste of that. I was 8 years old when we won our last Super Bowl, but I don't know. I feel like I was a different kid. Even memories at 5 are very vivid for me. Like, those were some of my first memories as a fan, watching all the different logos in a Pro Bowl game. And then I'm counting how many 49er logos because there were so many. And it was just right there, 49er fan, even though my mom was already a faithful, born and raised in the Bay Area. But I do got a confession, or not a confession. People who really know me, they know earlier in the season I was super hard on Kyle Shanahan, and sometimes I will go to extremes. Like, there were times, where I was like, oh my God, I'm done with Kyle, man. Let's promote D'Amico. And I was being extra. I was being extra. I was being emotional. Hey, I admit it. Did I really want to see Kyle go? Like I didn't. I just wanted him. I know he was better than earlier in the season, and we've got to see it. But I will say, that Don Shula, I look at like Don Shula, and I've done a lot of history in the NFL. He was known as a guy who could not win the big game before he won back-to-back Super Bowls. He was known for that kind of a coach, and then he goes off and then has an undefeated season. And there's a few other coaches who are very similar where they've lost and they're slipping my mind, but Don Shula is one of the main ones. And then you're talking about Bill Walsh, but hey, you never want to be known as the one that can't win the big one, but I have supreme faith and confidence that he's going to get his this year. And great job by John Lynch, not only building the roster and Kyle Shanahan, but I feel like they purposely brought in coaches this year. I said it all throughout the offseason. Hey, we replaced 5 coaches with 0 Super Bowl rings, and we brought in 5 coaches that have Super Bowl rings, or I think 4. But then there is another guy on there as well. But Nick Sorensen, Brian Snyder, D'Amico Ryans, or wait, hold on, excuse me, Brian Greasy and Anthony Lynn. And then there's another guy in there.
The tight ends coach is a new tight ends coach. They have a new wide receivers coach who they were on the roster or they're already on the coaching staff, but they have new responsibilities. A lot of changes on the coaching staff this year.
Yeah. But they've been remarkable. They got that championship pedigree. They got, even though you got rings as a player, it's like what it takes to do it and to get there, Greasy and Lynn got one together in Denver, and then Nick Sorensen and Snyder got one in Seattle in 2013. So it's not like these are all different guys either. Like they were paired up. It feels purposeful. Like, they wanted to bring in that championship pedigree. And hey, look, it was shaky in the beginning of the season, but hey, look, man, we're tearing off 11 straight games. CMC, we all know what he's about and what he's doing. Brock Purdy, everything he's doing. Debo's coming alive at the right time. People said, he was maybe losing a step or two, but he showed the Jets versus Seattle. So it's all clicking. It's all clicking. I feel like the 49ers no one can stop the Niners but the Niners. I feel like they would have to literally just fall on their face, whether it's Brock or the back end of the defense. I feel like, and then the refs would have to have their hand in it probably. and we've heard the little statements about Vegas. I don't know if you heard that, but Vegas coming out, it's a liability if the Niners win the Super Bowl. And now we're getting paired up with Bill Vanovic, who was the ref in the Chiefs game for the Super Bowl. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, man.
Yeah, no, it's going to be. That's the Vegas stuff and all that. Bill Vinovich, you're talking about the play. I just saw that earlier today or yesterday. I saw that the no PI call. I remember watching that live. Thinking, what the hell's going on here? I don't put a whole lot into that kind of stuff though, because the referee can only call so many plays. If it's not, he can't call that play. Bill Vinovich from his position can't throw the flag. It's the responsibility of that guy that's in that area to throw it, right?
Side judge, or what do they call it? Side judge,
either the side judge, back judge. One of those guys is the guy that throws that. He can't throw it because of where he's located. It doesn't work that way. And so that's one of the things I think the NFL screws up where and they get to this time of the season, they don't just keep those guys together. They work together all season long. And then they get to the most important time of the year and they have all-star crews, which makes
Come
no
on.
sense. You take your best crews like you do in baseball, and it should be that way in all sports. You take your best
Yeah.
groups of guys that have, especially they work together all the time. I don't know how if the NBA does it this way, but you take your crew and you keep your crew together, and that's the best
Yeah.
crew was the group. And if you're the best head referee, you're going to have the best crew, and that should be part of your job, is to make sure everybody else that you're working with is up to where your standard is.
And then they
So-
know each other. Yeah, and then they
Yeah.
know each other, and you have consistency, and you have absolutely.
Yeah, and so from that standpoint, the Vegas point, that's one that in terms of the amount of money that I think they could lose if the 49ers get to the Super Bowl win, that might be real. Who knows? It's going to be a lot of fun. I think the 49ers here, you said it, if they play to their potential, if the 49ers play to their potential, they will win on Sunday, and that's really all there is. Because if they have the more talented team, they do.
Absolutely.
And if they play, and I think they have the better coach, and I think they have the better coaching staff. And if they play to their potential, they will win the game. And that's really what it comes up to.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So, yeah, it was good to talk to you. Thanks for coming in. That's I see you on Twitter and stuff, and I was gonna when this season's over with, I'm gonna get back to doing roundtables and doing shows with different people, and so I was gonna hit you up for that anyway. So thank you for tuning in and hitting the link.
No problem. Anytime, man. I always appreciate it. I don't know. It's it's been a long time. I think the off season we did a show, but yeah, it's always cool to chop it up with you, man. It feels like it feels cool. So hey, it's always good to chop it up with the 49er guy and all that. So I appreciate it. You stay up, and I'll catch you. Hey, hit me up anytime. I'll catch you next time, my man.
Sounds good. Have a good rest of your Friday, and have a good Sunday. Enjoying the game.
You as well, my man. Peace.
Okay, take care. All right, there you go, everybody. Couts Chronicles. Make sure you get over, check him out on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe over there. I know Rafael always does that over here, and make sure that everybody likes and subscribes my stuff. He's really good about keeping me on track with that. So, I think I upset somebody earlier when I said that Dak Prescott is better than Jalen Hurts. And again, Jalen Hurts is a guy who I think was in consideration for the MVP, and rightfully so. The way that he plays the game and the things that he can do, I felt like he was a MVP worthy candidate. Unfortunately, he got injured, missed a couple of weeks, so he loses that. But from a throwing standpoint, I think that Dak Prescott is the more accurate thrower of the ball. He's not as good of a runner as Jalen Hurts, but I do think he's a more accurate thrower, and he's a more consistent thrower. There's no doubt that he struggled a little bit this season compared to last and years past. But overall, I think Dak is a pretty good quarterback who is one of the better ones in the league, and I would put him right there with Jalen Hurts. I think what he can do with the way this team is built, I think he's extremely difficult to play against. One last thing before I go, this is in terms of stats, I'd like to talk about stats. That's one of the ways that I look at this at matchups. And it's not sexy to talk about turnovers, but turnovers is a huge one for the 49ers. The 49ers are 23-3 under Kyle Shanahan since the start of 2021, when they either win or end up tied in that turnover margin. So if they turn the ball over less than or the same number as their opponents, they are 23-3. They're 1-9 when they turn the ball over more than their opponents. You look at the 49ers and the Cowboys. The 49ers over this 11-game win streak. That's what I want to focus on. It's this 11-game win streak since Christian McCaffrey joined. That's really when this team took off and really when they became who they are right now. Over the last 11 games, the 49ers have turned the ball over 5 times. There's no game in which the 49ers have turned the ball over more than once. They have 5 turnovers over that stretch. 1 turnover, that's it, per game. You look at the Dallas Cowboys over that same 11-game stretch, and they have 17 turnovers. So you're looking at one team with 5, the other team with 17. I think that's going to be where the difference comes in on Sunday. Can Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense hold on to the ball and do what they do? As long as they do that, I think the 49ers will win, because at some point the likelihood is that their defense is going to force a turnover. We've seen that be a big part of why this team has won so many games straight. We saw it last week against, I think that was the turning point against Seattle last week. It was the turning point in the game against the Raiders. The first interception leading to a field goal, the second one winning the game for them, and something that they've been doing consistently. So turnover is going to be a big part of that. And like I said earlier, Mike Silver with his column today, stating that Brock Purdy is going to be the quarterback for 2023. I don't think that's a long shot at all. I think he's right on the money. I said that a while back. I think if I would go back through my shows, I think this is what I said about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I said that I'm not going to keep talking about the quarterback situation and comparing, Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, or even Jimmy Garoppolo, because this is Brock Purdy's team. And they're going to go into 2023 when they come into the offseason, and I think there's going to be a quarterback competition. And there should be a quarterback competition between Brock Purdy and Trey Lance when they come to 2023. In 2023, that when you get to that quarterback competition, it is Brock Purdy's job to lose. It is his job to lose. He would be your starter. And the only way that he doesn't be the starter in 2023 is if Trey Lance outperforms him throughout training camp and preseason. And if I've watched the two guys play enough to where I would say I think that at the end of the day, Brock Purdy would win that competition. Now, we'll find that out later on. But for right now, it's focusing on Sunday, 49ers, Cowboys at Levi Stadium at 3:30. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope everybody is excited as I am to watch this game. I'm looking forward to covering it, even though I can't cheer and I don't root, all those kind of things, because it's just not something that is allowed in the press box. I will tell you that I get excited for big games. I get excited. Usually it's been Monday Night Football is about the biggest that I've been able to cover. I wasn't able to be at the game on Saturday because of flooding and then an injury with my leg. So between those things, I wasn't there for that game last week against Seattle, but I will be at Levi Stadium on Sunday for 49ers versus Cowboys. I am excited to be there and bring you the coverage. If you guys can do me a favor before you check out here today, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I will have more content coming up between now and Sunday. I'll be giving you my full predictions for the postseason games. That will be coming up tomorrow. I'll get that up before the games start. So I will have I'll predict all 4 games. You'll get that. Then on Sunday, there'll be the pregame show. There'll be a postgame show afterwards. And then during the game, get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. 49ers.pressdemocrat.com is the blog site that I work for. It's the Santa Rosa Press Democrat is the newspaper. That is the Inside the 49ers blog. There will be a live blog going on throughout the game where I give my thoughts and analysis as well, updates. So check all those out. Like, subscribe, 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Thank you all so much for coming in and tuning in on a Friday afternoon. I don't usually do shows by myself on Fridays. I haven't done a call-in show in a while. It was a lot of fun to talk to some people that I don't get a chance to talk to all that often. Even Peter Lee, who is somebody that I had never talked to before. So that was fantastic, and I look forward to doing this again, and something that will definitely be starting up during the off season. And got to keep building this channel up to get it to where we want to go and give you guys the best content possible. Like Raphael 5629er says, like, subscribe, keep it locked in here to the Jackhammer channel for all of your 49ers news and updates as it happens. Take everybody. Have a great rest of your Friday, and we'll be talking soon.